Shalom, my friend. Some things fail not because you lacked faith, but because heaven never authorized them. Right now, there are millions of people grinding themselves into exhaustion, praying for breakthrough in ventures that were never meant to succeed. They call it spiritual warfare, when it's actually spiritual misalignment. They're asking God to fund what He never assigned, to bless what He never commissioned, to prosper what exists outside His original blueprint for their lives. I'm Rabbi Shimon, the Torah Life Architect, and for the past 20 years I've been translating ancient Torah design principles into modern clarity for thinking adults who refuse to accept religious cliches as answers to real problems. Today, we're going to examine one of the most misunderstood principles in all of Scripture, something that will completely shift how you approach work, money, relationships, and life decisions. Here's what most people get wrong about divine provision. They think God funds dreams. He doesn't. God funds assignments. There's a massive difference, and understanding this difference will save you years of frustration, financial stress, and wondering why your sincere efforts keep hitting invisible walls. The Torah reveals a fundamental law that governs how the universe operates, and once you understand this law, everything about money, success, and life purpose becomes clear. This law explains why some people seem to have effortless provision while others struggle despite working twice as hard. It explains why certain businesses thrive while others with better products fail. It explains why some ministries grow rapidly while others plateau despite genuine hearts and good intentions. The law is this: provision follows alignment, not desire. Let me say that again, because this will challenge everything you've been taught about success and spirituality. Provision follows alignment, not desire. This means that having a good heart, working hard, and wanting something badly does not guarantee divine backing. What guarantees divine backing is operating within your assigned sphere, fulfilling your designated function, and building what you were specifically commissioned to build. This is why the Torah teaches us 3 sequential principles that most people reverse. Assignment precedes provision. You must know what you're called to do before expecting the resources to do it. Authority precedes resources. You must have legitimate authority in a sphere before money flows sustainably in that sphere. Calling precedes capacity. Your capacity to handle something develops after you accept the calling, not before. Most people approach life backwards. They chase the money first, hoping it will reveal their purpose. They seek capacity before accepting their calling. They want resources before establishing authority. This backwards approach creates what I call spiritual turbulence, where nothing flows smoothly despite tremendous effort. Let's examine how this plays out in modern life. In careers, countless people are trapped in positions that drain their life force because they chased salary over assignment. They took jobs based on what they could earn rather than what they were called to contribute. Now they're asking God to bless work that exhausts them, relationships that deplete them, and lifestyles that require them to violate their deepest values just to maintain them. They wonder why their prayers feel empty and their progress feels forced. In business, entrepreneurs launch ventures based on market opportunities rather than personal calling. They see what's profitable and assume that means it's meant for them. They work 18-hour days building something that was never theirs to build, then wonder why customers don't connect, why partnerships feel forced, why money comes in slowly, if at all. They're operating outside their zone of divine authority, asking heaven to fund what heaven never commissioned. In ministry, well-meaning people start churches, nonprofits, and spiritual ventures because they see a need, not because they received a commission. They confuse compassion with calling. They mistake burden with assignment. Now they're fundraising for visions that originated in their emotions rather than in divine instruction. They burn out trying to sustain what was never meant to be sustained through their efforts alone. In relationships, people force connections with individuals who look good on paper but don't align with their actual assignment in life. They marry based on attraction or convenience rather than divine pairing. They build friendships that drain them because they feel obligated rather than inspired. They wonder why their closest relationships require so much effort and produce so little joy. Financially, people experience stress not because they don't earn enough, but because they're trying to fund lifestyles and ventures that exist outside their zone of divine provision. They chase income to validate identity rather than letting identity determine income streams. They accumulate debt financing dreams that were never authorized from heaven's perspective. This backwards approach creates three devastating patterns. Hard work without assignment drains people. When you're operating outside your calling, even small tasks feel overwhelming. You find yourself exhausted by activities that should energize you. You need excessive rest to recover from work that should be life-giving. Prayer without alignment frustrates people. When you're asking God to bless what He never commissioned, your prayers feel like talking to a wall. You wonder if God is hearing you, if He cares, if prayer even works. The frustration isn't because God isn't listening. It's because you're asking Him to support something that contradicts His design for your life. Hustle without calling burns people out. When you're grinding in the wrong sphere, more effort produces diminishing returns. You work twice as hard for half the results. You start believing lies about your capabilities, your worth, your potential. You think the problem is your work ethic when the problem is your work assignment. Now let me share the 3 alignment laws that govern how provision actually flows in the universe. Understanding these laws will revolutionize how you approach every area of life. The first law is that assignment creates authority. You cannot govern what was not entrusted to you. This means you only have legitimate authority in spheres where you've been specifically commissioned. Trying to operate outside your assigned sphere creates resistance, friction, and eventual failure, regardless of your qualifications or intentions. Think about a talented musician who decides to become a surgeon without medical training or calling. Their musical gifts don't transfer into surgical authority. They lack the legitimacy to operate in that sphere, so patients won't trust them, hospitals won't hire them, and insurance won't cover them. This isn't because they lack talent. It's because they lack assignment. The same principle applies to every area of life. You might be brilliant at marketing but lack authority to lead a church. You might be gifted at teaching but lack authority to run a business. You might be wonderful at nurturing but lack authority to counsel marriages. Authority comes from assignment, not from ability alone. The second law is that authority attracts provision. Money follows legitimacy, not need. This is why some people with modest abilities attract abundant resources, while others with exceptional talents struggle financially. It's not about fairness or worthiness. It's about operating within your sphere of divine authority. When you function in your assigned sphere, resources flow toward you naturally. People want to invest in what you're building. Opportunities open without you forcing them. Money comes from unexpected sources. Doors that were closed suddenly open. This isn't luck or networking. This is what happens when you align with divine design. When you operate outside your assigned sphere, you constantly chase resources. You have to convince people to invest. You have to force opportunities. You have to manipulate circumstances to create income. Even when money comes, it doesn't stick. It flows through your hands faster than you can hold it. The third law is that misalignment causes leakage. This explains why some people's income disappears even when it increases. They might get raises, bonuses, or windfalls, but unexpected expenses always arise to absorb the extra money. Their car breaks down, their roof needs repair, their kids need expensive medical care. They can never get ahead financially despite earning more. This isn't coincidence or bad luck. This is what happens when you use resources to fund ventures that exist outside your divine assignment. The universe has built-in mechanisms to redirect resources toward their proper destinations. Money that flows into wrong channels doesn't stay there. Let me illustrate this with a Torah example that demonstrates divine design logic, not religious doctrine. In the book of Exodus, when the Israelites needed someone to construct the tabernacle, God didn't choose the most talented artist or the most successful businessman. He chose Bezel, a young man whose name means "in the shadow of God." God specifically called Bezalel for this assignment and then gave him supernatural ability to fulfill it. The Torah says God filled him with divine spirit, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge to work with gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood. Notice the sequence. Assignment first, then ability. Calling first, then capacity. Bezalel didn't volunteer for this project because he was passionate about construction. He didn't lobby for the position because it seemed prestigious. He was chosen, commissioned, and then equipped. Once he accepted his assignment, resources flowed toward the project effortlessly. People donated materials so generously that Moses had to tell them to stop giving. This illustrates perfect alignment, divine assignment, followed by divine authority, followed by divine provision. Bezalel operated within his commissioned sphere, so everything he needed was provided. The project succeeded not because of human effort, but because of divine backing. Now, let's make this practical for your life today. Here are 7 questions you can use this week to check your alignment with divine assignment. What am I forcing? Look at areas where you constantly struggle against resistance. Where do you feel like you're pushing a rope uphill? Where does progress require excessive effort compared to results? These might be areas where you're operating outside your assigned sphere. What am I pretending is from God because I want it to be? Be honest about ventures you've labeled as divine calling because you need them to be legitimate. Sometimes we spiritualize our desires to avoid admitting we chose based on fear, greed, or ego, rather than genuine commission. What drains me instead of energizing me? Work within your assignment should be challenging but not draining. It should stretch you without exhausting you. If you're constantly depleted by your main activities, you might be operating outside your designed function. Where am I asking provision to validate identity? Are you pursuing certain income levels or lifestyle markers to prove your worth? Are you choosing ventures because they sound impressive rather than because they align with your actual calling? Money should flow from identity, not create identity. What relationships require me to violate my values to maintain them? Connections within your assigned sphere should enhance your character, not compromise it. If you constantly have to be someone you're not to keep certain relationships, they might exist outside divine design for your life. What successes feel hollow despite achieving my goals? Sometimes we succeed at things we were never meant to succeed at. External achievement without internal alignment creates emptiness rather than fulfillment. This might indicate you're building in the wrong sphere. Where do I have natural authority that I'm not utilizing? Pay attention to areas where people naturally look to you for guidance, where your influence feels effortless, where you can create change without force. These might indicate spheres of divine assignment you haven't fully embraced. Now let me address some common objections to this teaching, because I know this challenges conventional wisdom about work and money. But I need the money. I understand financial pressure is real, but desperation doesn't create legitimate authority. Taking work outside your assignment might provide temporary relief, but it creates long-term misalignment that ultimately costs more than it pays. Better to trust divine design and find creative ways to generate income within your actual sphere of calling. What if I chose wrong and I'm already invested? Divine assignments don't usually change dramatically overnight. If you've built something outside your calling, look for ways to transition gradually. Sometimes God uses our mistakes as bridges to our actual assignment. Don't assume you have to destroy everything you've built, but do start aligning your choices with your true calling. Isn't all honest work blessed? Honest work is honorable, but not all honest work is assignment. You can have a job that provides for your family while building your true calling on the side. The key is not to mistake temporary provision for permanent assignment. Use honest work to support yourself while you discover and develop your actual sphere of authority. The goal isn't to quit everything immediately and wait for divine revelation. The goal is to gradually align your choices with your actual design. Start by identifying one area where you're operating outside your assignment and take one step toward realignment. Here's your challenge for this week. Stop funding what God never assigned, even if it looks impressive. Look at your current investments of time, money, and energy. Which ones drain you rather than energize you? Which ones require you to be someone you're not? Which ones produce results through force rather than flow? Choose one misaligned investment and begin withdrawing your resources from it. This might mean declining a lucrative opportunity that doesn't match your calling. It might mean ending a relationship that requires you to compromise your values. It might mean leaving a position that pays well but depletes your soul. This isn't about being irresponsible or impractical. This is about trusting that divine design is more practical than human strategy. When you operate within your assigned sphere, provision flows naturally. When you operate outside it, you have to force everything. Remember, God doesn't fund dreams. He funds assignments. Your job is not to create opportunities, but to recognize the ones already designed for you. Your job is not to make things happen, but to align with what's already happening in the divine realm. Some of you are exhausting yourselves building impressive ventures that were never meant to exist. Others are ignoring simple assignments because they don't seem significant enough. Both patterns create misalignment and block the flow of divine provision. True prosperity isn't about accumulating resources. It's about stewarding the specific portion of creation entrusted to your care. When you focus on your assignment rather than your ambition, resources align with your purpose rather than competing with it. The Torah teaches that every soul has a unique function in the cosmic design. When you operate within your function, you contribute to universal harmony. When you operate outside it, you create discord that affects not just your life, but the lives of everyone connected to you. Your assignment might be smaller than your ego wants, but larger than your fear believes. It might be simpler than your education suggests, but deeper than your experience indicates. It might look ordinary to others, but feel extraordinary to you when you're walking in alignment. The sign that you're operating within divine assignment isn't the absence of challenges, but the presence of supernatural grace to handle them. It's not that everything comes easily, but that you have strength for what you're truly called to build. Stop asking God to bless your plans and start asking Him to reveal His plans for you. Stop trying to make your dreams succeed and start discovering the dreams He planted in your design before you were born. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction. Shalom, my friend. Now let's build the life God designed for you.